Which players can you trust rest of season? Can you trust Matthew Stafford? Can you trust Michael Pittman? We'll talk about it right now on Fantasy Football Today in 5. What's going on? Adam Azer and Dave Richard here. It's Tuesday night. You're probably listening on Wednesday morning. Thanks so much for being a dedicated audience member of Fantasy Football Today in 5. Yeah. We didn't get a ton of news on Tuesday, but Daniel Jones seems likely to miss this week's game. He's week to week with a neck strain. Does this mean anything to you in terms of Galladay or whoever else, Barkley, whoever else you might be interested in on the Giants?
So we're going to get a quarterback change. Mike Glennon will be the quarterback for New York. When we last saw him, he was aggressive in throwing downfield. Not that I'm going to promise you that he's going to stay that way against the Dolphins. Dolphins are definitely going to try and come after him. I would imagine that there will be a little more in the way of downfield shots, at least intermediate throws. We're talking passes 10 to 19 yards downfield for Kenny Galladay and for Kadarius Toney, provided that he actually plays in the game. I think it's probably going to be okay for Sterling Shepard if he ends up playing as well. But this should make things a little bit more interesting for the Giants, whose offense really was sputtering with Daniel Jones. I know that sounds crazy that Mike Glennon could be that guy, but the one thing that you can always say about Glennon is that he's had the arm talent. There's a lot of things that he doesn't quite have, but arm talent he's got. And so I imagine he'll try and use that against the Dolphins.
Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham. Can you trust them down the stretch?
So their schedule is interesting. It's Jacksonville at Arizona, Seattle, which has actually been pretty good against the pass, Minnesota in week 16, and then at Baltimore in week 17. I think you're going to be able to trust Stafford. I just don't think that there's 10 or 11 other quarterbacks that you'll put ahead of him week to week. I'm a little bit more encouraged about how the offensive line played against Green Bay. Beckham is the one. He had the one great play against the Packers. Everything else was kind of but he did have 10 targets in the game. And that's something that you might feel okay about. I would say Beckham's the number 3 receiver.
All right, Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts. How about that passing duo? Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith. Can you trust that one down the stretch?
Well, I'm not even 100% sure that Jalen Hurts is going to play. It sounds like he had a really sore ankle coming out of the Week 12 matchup. But the schedule for Philadelphia, we've talked about it so much. It's perfect. It's the Jets. It's a bye. 2 games against Washington and the Giants before Week 18 against the Cowboys. Probably, quite literally, the easiest schedule that an offense will have the remainder of the year. It just kind of stinks that Hurts is hurt right now, and then they've got a bye next week. I would put Smith in the number 3 receiver conversation as well. Hurts probably behind Stafford rest of season.
Okay, how about David Montgomery and Darnell Mooney? So not a passing duo, but Montgomery and Mooney for the Chicago Bears. How much do you trust them down the stretch?
Another duo that doesn't have an easy schedule the rest of the way. It's okay. It's just not great. I'm still trusting Montgomery, but it's more as like a top 18-ish type of fantasy running back, not the top 12 guy that I thought he would be. Man, I'm disappointed he didn't have a monster game against the Lions on Thanksgiving, but Mooney has had monster games. I would imagine that he's going to continue to see targets and downfield shots. It's really come with Allen Robinson on the sideline. As long as Robinson's out, Mooney should be in top 24 fantasy receiver.
Yeah. Starting to get definitely some more confidence in Darnell Mooney. Wish I had him in some leagues, but Michael Pittman's been tough. So Pittman and Carson Wentz, we know when they win, it's not good news for them. When they lose, you got a lot more opportunities, like 10 targets last week for Pittman, even though he didn't come through. Do you trust Wentz and Pittman down the stretch?
And they're playing at Houston this week, which sounds amazing. The problem is that the Texans are going to be just as bad against the run as they are the pass, so it could be a Jonathan Taylor game. Hard to expect double-digit targets from Michael Pittman. Hard to expect a monster game from Carson Wentz, but I think he can have an okay game. I don't think they're going to go into Houston and try and make things right with Wentz, especially considering the fact that he had such a good game the week before. They've got a bye after that, then the Patriots, then the Cardinals, then the Raiders. You might not be using these guys. You'll probably use them this week if you have them and you don't have better options, but you might not feel good about using these guys until that matchup against Las Vegas.
That is Dave Richard. I'm Adam Azer. This is Fantasy Football Today in 5. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll talk to you tomorrow at FFT in 5.